Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome today to my review of the latest release by American brand, the Swiss Watch Company. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but stick with me. If the name sounds familiar to you, perhaps it's because you've seen reviews of their watches on this channel or elsewhere before. I looked at their Diver way back in 2018, followed by their Bunker and Arc models. I was generally impressed. Loads of lume, loads of AR, some nice materials and nice pricing. But there was one thing that bugged me, and I mentioned it in each of the videos. And I'm not alone. Ben from Ben's Watch Club also gave it a bit of a roasting late last year, that being their logo. It was unnecessarily large and clunky, it was indistinct, and it was generally pretty unattractive. Now, you notice that I just said was. I spotted on Instagram at the beginning of last month that they had changed their logo to a new one. Much simpler, much cleaner, much smaller, much better. And check the comments, everybody seems delighted. It was like the exact opposite of reading the comment sections about Bremont's recent rebrand. They sent me a message asking me if I'd like to review their new watch, the Tumbler, and I said yes. Now you saw the pop-up? This video is sponsored by the Swiss Watch Company. I'll leave a link to their website in the description of the video. They're taking orders on these from the 19th of October, with shipping taking place next month, November 2024. So, a good news story today then about a brand fixing their worst feature. Well, yes, but also no. Before I explain myself, let's look at the package overall, starting with the packaging. Now, all SWCs so far have shipped in one of these leather travel pouches, but this one not quite as natural, not quite as rich and raw as previous examples. Still not too bad though, and plenty of space for the watch, plus a few extra straps if you're taking it away for a few days and you like swapping the straps. Also, I spotted this delightful little feature here. They've done me a custom warranty card, which is lovely. 3-year warranty, by the way. So SWC specialise in field style watches made out of titanium, and indeed the Tumbler is a field style watch made out of titanium. It's very similar to their Bunker model, but rather than wearing fatigues, the Tumbler is wearing a tux, particularly in this lovely two-tone fuchsia colourway. Now, I really like this combination, but I appreciate it might not be to everyone's taste. There are a number of marginally more sensible colour versions available if fuchsia isn't your cup of tea. Now, in terms of dimensions, this one is 41mm in diameter, only 10mm thick though, and with a lug-to-lug of 46. However, like the Bunker, they've chosen to go with 22mm lug width. Now that can lead to a bracelet being somewhat too bulky for the watch head, but I think it works here just fine, at least in part because the watch is titanium. Weight as size for my 7-inch wrist is 100 grams. Water resistance is 100 meters, crystal is flat sapphire with a heap of anti-reflective undercoating, a heap being a technical term for 16 layers. And the movement in the back is a Sellita SW200. So, Swiss watch, Swiss movement obviously. You can't see it though, that's fine. You do get a screw-on titanium case back with the spec sheet around the outer edge, model name and brand logo in the middle. Hang on, what's that? That's the old brand logo. In fact, now that I come to think of it, the packaging had the old brand logo on it as well. Okay, I guess you don't look at the packaging very often and the case back is generally pressed onto your wrist, so alright, let's move on to the case. Being titanium, the majority of the case has that dull grey colour and a very nice fine satin brushing on it, but as is the way of things in 2024, brands are increasingly polishing titanium, which I love to see. Look at those chamfers running from the point where the bezel meets the case all the way down to the tip of the lug. They look great. Look at the bezel itself, also high polish. There's a 1200 Vickers hardness coating, by the way, on the case and the bracelet, so it should remain looking this good for quite a while. Female end links are always great to see, especially on a 40 plus, and as we flip it over to the crown side, we can see a nice and grippy 6mm crown with the old logo on it again. Guys, what's going on? Anyway, let's move on to the bracelet. The bracelet is a 3-link oyster style, again made of titanium and again featuring plenty of high polish rather than just dull grey. The mid links are gleaming away there, although perhaps the gleam is a little less bright than it would have been had they been made of stainless steel. The links themselves are pretty chunky, screws holding it all together very nicely, but it features a rather small titanium clasp with only 2 holes of micro adjust etched into the top with the old brand logo. This is the most non-committal rebranding exercise I've ever seen. So far, it's old logo 4, new logo 1. Now, I contacted the brand assuming that this was a prototype and that all of that would be changed for production units, and they told me it wouldn't. Now, it's not the first time I've encountered this, to be honest. I have racked my brains, and I remember a much more expensive Swiss watch than this one, where the collars didn't match the cuffs, so to speak. When I reviewed the Hamilton Intramatic a couple of years ago, it had the Heritage Hamilton logo on the dial, but the new Hamilton logo on the bracelet and clasp. My comment then was,
"Come on, Hamilton, see it through to the finish, would you?"
And that is equally valid today. So at this point, I guess it's over to you. Are you alright with 2 different logos on the same watch, or does that get your OCD twitching? Leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts. If you're still keen, then the next thing we'll do is have a look at the dial and handset. Now, it's not immediately obvious, but the outer ring of the dial, the raised outer section with those printed numerals on it, is made of sapphire. Now, this isn't something I've seen before, but perhaps it shouldn't come as much of a surprise when you think about it. It's just a mineral, and we're all now used to seeing slices of malachite, meteorite, and aventurine on dials, so why not sapphire? You can see this most clearly with that beveled section that bridges the gap between the 2 dial levels. It looks like stainless steel, but the glint you're seeing is actually glass. And of course, the sapphire here has been printed on top of. All of that outer section, the purple colour, the numerals, the patterns, the minute track, all printed on top of the glass dial. And I do like what SWC do with their numerals on this and other previous models. It's very reminiscent of Nomos and their Club Campus range. They print the numeral, in this case the 6, and then they print the lume on top of that, slightly smaller, meaning you get a border around each numeral in a slightly different colour. It is a really, really nice effect. And while we're here, have a look at the Arabics on the minute track. They are quite possibly the smallest Arabic numerals I have seen printed on any dial. From arm's length, you can't even see they're there, which does rather make you question why they bothered. There's a nice textured pattern to the centre section of the dial with the new logo applied on top of it. I assume it's a stylised Swiss cross with the watch brand name printed underneath. Credit where it's due, it looks really good. It looks so much better than the old one. Here are the 2 of them side by side. No wonder people were haranguing them to change it. Hands are syringe-tipped swords in high polished silver with a bevel down the middle. They're a good size, they're well proportioned relative to each other, and I like the second hand. It's got a lollipop counterbalance and a painted tip, with the paint being the same as that used underneath those numerals like we just saw. It might seem a brave decision to make a field-style watch in 2-tone purple and pink, but I've been saying for years now that colour was the next frontier. We've all got so many black, blue and white dial watches that we're looking for something different, and this is certainly different. Lume has always been a standout on SWC watches, and the Tumbler is no different. This is X1 grade BL10, which is a new one to me, but not new to the brand. They've used it before. It's basically blue superluminova. Now, it looks amazing initially, and you can see that sapphire ring glowing because they've lumed the underside of the sapphire dial as well as the top surface, apparently. When I turn the speed up on this one though, the lume on the numerals especially is still glowing really brightly. However, the hands are fading before them, so they would definitely have benefited from another couple of coats of lume here, if I'm being honest. Alright, the on-wrist experience is a good one. 4122 is not a common size these days, but because of the really short lug to lug, because of the female end links, and because of the lack of weight, it all works really well. 10mm thick is also very nice, especially considering that sandwich dial. And the AR underneath the crystal is some of the best I've ever seen. It just doesn't care about my studio lights at all. It's really very, very good. But all of those polished surfaces do prove a couple of points. The first is that titanium can be blingy if you treat it that way. The second is that the Tumbler is definitely more of an all-rounder than an out-and-out field watch. SWC themselves described this one as a GADA, so I guess they're acknowledging that purple dial and lots of high polish, it's just not going to get the same type of usage as some of their other models. But even as a GADA, it's quite big. It's not heavy, but it does have a big dial, probably better for slightly bigger than average wrists therefore. Alright, moans and niggles, although I've probably already started that, haven't I? Why rebrand part of a watch and then not rebrand the rest of the watch? I don't get it. Perhaps it was a late decision, perhaps the production run had already started, and perhaps they thought it was better to do the dial than not to do any of it at all. I don't know. There are pressures on micro brands that big brands just don't have to deal with. You know, big brands can dump packaging, they can dump components, they can wholesale their watches in a way that a small company like SWC cannot. But it does seem a bit to say, you asked, we listened, when I don't think anyone was asking for two different logos on the same watch. Now, I've already highlighted the tiny numerals on the outer track. This watch effectively doesn't have minute markers either. Honestly, these markers are so small and so indistinct that they all just kind of merge into one. Half links are provided, but the clasp is somewhat basic with a limited number of micro adjustment positions. I might have expected something with on-the-fly adjustment for the price. Talking of which, I haven't talked about price yet either, have I? These are $650 early bird pre-order price. The full RRP is going to be $750 when they're in stock next month. Again, I guess this one is all about perspective. You could view that as expensive for a micro or cheap for a well-spec'd titanium Swiss-made watch. It is certainly a little more expensive than their previous models, I will say that much. So, as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit conflicted myself today. I like the watch, I like the colour, I really like the dial in the hands, and the rebrand is definitely a step in the right direction. I just wish they had made 4 steps forward rather than 1 step forward. So there you have it, well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. While you're here, why not check out a couple of SWC's other offerings. Thanks for watching this one, I'll see you again in the next one.